everyone. This is Josh from Decapitation, and I'm here with United Rock Nations.
Hello, Josh. I'm very happy to be with you for this interview. This interview about Cattle Decapitation and the new album released in 2 weeks in May the 12th by Metal Blade Records. And
Yes.
The title of this new album, Terrasite. I don't know if this is a good pronunciation. In French,
perfect.
Terrasite.
No,
Terrasite.
perfect.
Yes, very interesting concept with this new album. But before talking about this new material, I want to have your feeling about the career of Cattle Decapitation. More than 25 years, lot of album. The last one, Death Atlas, was very amazing. So, what is your feeling, you, Josh, about this career and about the band and the evolution since the beginning? In a few words.
Yeah. The cliche thing would be to say like we're just happy to still be here, but I mean in a way that's kind of how it is. I mean, we've been fortunate to kind of have a different arc, I think than a lot of other bands have or have had. I think certain like bands like get signed or whatever, and it's on the basis of the kind of whatever, lack of a better term, sort of blowing up at a certain time, and then they have this sort of initial early peak, and then they just kind of like either try to recreate what that initial peak was for the rest of their careers, or just sort of people go their separate ways. For us, we started with this sort of a friend of ours was working at Metal Blade Records at the time. This is 2001, 2002, and he'd really put in a good word for us with to Brian Slagle and Mike Faley there. And they kind of came out and they saw us. They came and watched us rehearse, and then they saw a couple shows. And on the potential they saw in that, they signed us. Well, we didn't have some big blowout. We weren't already super, super, super hot in a certain underground scene or whatever, and they just elevated us. We started off very kind of simmery slow and just built over time. And we were fortunate enough that they, kept us along as long as they did. And, I'd say, we did just kind of okay for a long time. And then maybe around 2012 or so, we started to kind of, dramatically kind of have a higher profile and, do better, or have people that like really receive the music a lot better. So they kind of like after 10 years at that point, maybe saw some sort of, I don't want to say return, but just kind of like, oh, okay, finally, these guys are starting to, like do something or whatever. But, I would have much rather, or I'm much rather be the age I am now and, being able to, have whatever level of, I don't want to say success. That's kind of, I don't know, just be where I am now than to be a 4-year-old and have be in some band that like initially pops and have to navigate whatever that means in your life and how you handle it. And then be sitting there, say 28, 29 and go, oh, I had that back then versus now, which I'm 47. So it's like, oh, I'm happy that I, at this point in my life, can still do this and have it be a viable thing where I'm not just trying to retread what we've done before or just, have this part of my life have been gone and out of it for 10 or 15 years and I'm off doing something, completely unrelated, So I think all of us are very appreciative and realize what a privilege it is to be able to still tour and write music and have people care at this point in our lives and within the band.
Okay. So now for talking about this new album called Terrasite, I want to know how do you do to write this album after the masterpiece Death Atlas, because we could when we listen to this new album we could hear the difference. We could hear not a new way but something different and very excellent. So I want to know how do you do to make that to be I don't know the name in English, but to do a sort of a kind of new music.
Mhm.
Only 3 years after this last good album. So could you explain to us how do you do it?
Yeah, that was kind of difficult because Death Atlas came out at the end of 2019, like the very end of November 29th, 2019. And of course, we only got one US tour under our belts, and then we were doing international touring right when COVID hit. So we were basically like everyone else shut down. And we're used to having like, we record an album, tour on it for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. So you have all this time to kind of like play, what were then new songs that become old songs later, over and over and over, and just kind of either really cement what direction you want to go in for new material, or get sort of new things, new types of influences or stuff that you're kind of into at the time that you can hopefully incorporate into what Cattle's doing. But we didn't have that. It was like, oh, here's one regular tour and then one 2-week tour and then shut down. So that was this kind of apprehension, like, okay, well, what, we don't have those sort of miles under our belt after this record comes out to really kind of feel that we're seasoning ourselves to the next thing. Because, in 2020, like started to get about June, when we got back from the tour earlier that year, right before COVID hit, or COVID had just kind of hit, and we are like, okay, we're shut down for a while. We were speculating like, oh, how long do you think was be? Oh, July, August, we'll be back, or something. Yeah, right. So about June, we're like realizing this isn't going to end anytime soon. So then it was this sort of reality of like, well, how long does it take us to write a record? Blah 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 blah. And then maybe the way vinyl, we want to get all the physical media out at the same time. Well, that's going to take a long. Okay, oh crap. Well, can't hurt. Maybe we should start writing. And there was this initial, like I said, apprehension of like we hadn't have our usual sort of cadence of what was happening, and this sort of time separating it to kind of grow, or sort of ferment in what our sort of state of our mental state, individual mental state was going to be. So we just kind of like, well, let's casually start, and then hopefully stuff will be opened up by the time we get rolling, and then we can have a tour and then feel, well, of course that didn't happen. So I think we maybe got, once touring in the US, touring in the US started opening up, I think, I want to say August 2021. It got kind of like a little more sort of, there was a couple tours going out to see how it would go, but we didn't get ours first one until I want to say the beginning of 2022, like March or something that year. So by that time, Terrasite was pretty much like 85-90% written. So it was kind of like we weren't getting that experience. But I don't know. I think there was enough outside, with the pandemic doing what it is, whatever it was doing mentally to everyone, collectively as a band and individually, and then a lot of things that we were having going on in our personal lives. I think that sort of tempered our experience, and really, whether it was in, like I don't say isolation, that seems dramatic, but I mean, a few of us live alone. So it's a lot of that was, oh, well, put on your mask and go to the grocery store and get out, and then go back and stare at the wall in your room you're in, and no one could really work or do whatever. So it was, how does that affect an individual or, anyone? So we unfortunately have an outlet, which is, the band and everything, to kind of let us, I don't say let us steam, but just kind of like air those kind of mental grievances we have. So I think that, kind of helped us coming into Terrasite, being sort of, I don't say rejuvenated, because it was a big bummer, obviously, being, kind of nailed down like that. But we were just able to harness that frustration and, whatever things we're having in our lives individually, to hopefully put out something that was worthwhile that people will like, and that, we're happy with it. But, I hope others would, at least there was like a palpable sort of, communication of us feeling, like I said, it's like everyone else on earth, just frustrated and isolated, kind of what's next, and or do we even have a band anymore? Are we able to tour or do anything? And then there was a lot of sort of upheaval in our personal lives too. So none of that was helping. So it's everything happening at once, but at least we weren't on tour when it was all happening. I guess it's the one glaring thing, people weren't having these personal crises while you're on tour. It's like you're all at home, kind of like, staring at a wall going over things. So yeah, I don't know. I think not that I would ever want to experience it again or hope it ever happens again, but I think the pandemic kind of made the album what it is.
And could you explain to us the concept of Terrasite? Because Terrasite is like a daytime horror, not very in the dark, so it's more terrific maybe. How do you manage to do that? And what is the concept in this kind of music?
Well, Travis had the concept of this sort of like, I guess the creature you could say, kind of pictured on the cover. He had this, and we didn't know this at the time. He kind of brought this out later. It was like, oh, I've had that kind of like sort of ruminating for like 8 years or so. And it wasn't meant to be like, oh, here's a follow-up to Death Atlas, because that was brought up before the concept of Death Atlas was even a glimmer. So I think this was just something he had kind of brewing, just to like, oh, I'm just going to sketch this out and have it, maybe I'll use it at some point in time. Well, Death Atlas being the type of record that really implies a finality to everything, I think he picked a good time to bring it out, because it was like, Death Atlas, you're painted in a corner. It's like, here's the end of everything. Well, where the heck do you go as a band? It's like, the past 4 or 5 records have been so concept driven that it's like, we didn't want to do some sort of like space alternate dimensions kind of thing, because one, that's not really us, and two, other bands have done that, So his concept is like, well, taking this sort of, urban myth sort of thing, or myth of like, oh, cockroaches could survive a nuclear holocaust, haha, whatever, that kind of thing. Well, we had this final event in Death Atlas where the Earth was not, destroyed completely, but all appreciable life gone. Well, oh, those roaches or roach-type beings survived, and then somehow there was this cocoon. Like, this is where it gets the fantastical part comes in, of course. These sort of cocooned, human like pictured on the inside of Death Atlas, and then on the cover of Terrasite, these Pompeii-style bodies where you're encased in ash. There was almost like there was this sort of genetic melding and this cocooning of cockroaches and humans, which is the figure you see on the cover. What's more representative of is this enduring animal that nothing can kill, that has the cockroach hardiness, but at the same time, there's this human element of just consuming and destroying things. So, a survivalist human insect that just devours everything. So you have this post-apocalyptic world where there's just this, charred earth with, on the cover you see little sprigs of grass growing. So there's this sort of, life has been vaporized, but you still have this one thing that survived. And what does it do? It devours everything. So it just kind of, kicks the can down the road as far as having this sort of, it's a new life form, new birth, but it's a very voracious and death dealing, kind of entity. So it keeps continuing with these sort of death metal theme. It's like there's no positive end to this. It's like, oh, there's rebirth, but it's a predatory, devouring, terrible entity.
And a question about the last 3 albums, so Terrasite, Death Atlas, and the first, the Anthropocene.
Anthropocene,
yeah. Could we say this is a trilogy or not?
I think our albums, like even going way back, kind of go, I don't know, like conceptually, I think you could do what you just described. I think musically they kind of go in threes. But if we're starting, I think, because, you had with, let's say, Monolithic Inhumanity, you had these kind of ape human things going on. And then Anthropocene, that was like a very much, what you thought was the end of life. Here's all these people, like washed up on the beach, like on the cover and stuff. And I think I was more like 2/3 of the way through everything being extinct. And then Death Atlas is obviously this charred earth, and then this rebirth of Terrasite. So in the manner you proposed it, yes, that makes sense.
Okay.
thinking of it that way. But that's one of those Travis things. I would like him to explain. You know, he's very much as far as that, like his timeline, as far as the concepts. That's me saying this is my interpretation, and the way you describe it makes total sense. Because if you have this anomaly of like monolith of inhumanity, which is like these sort of, you know, Planet of the Apes style, you know, and then you have Anthropocene. Okay, here's the almost human extinction, but not total, and then Death Atlas, everything's gone, and then rebirth with Terrasite. So
Okay.
that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you could you test in live some song before the release and before maybe the release of the promotional single in live or not for this new album?
Oh, what the next song is going to be? You think, or is that weird?
Yes, I want to know if during your previous tour,
Oh,
before the release of the promotional single, could
yeah.
you maybe play songs of this new album in live in order to have the feeling of people in live? Could you do that or not?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what we did that tour with Amarth and Obituary and Carcass back in
Yeah.
November, December. And yeah, we brought out Weed Are Young for that. That was which first single off the record.
Okay.
And so we just figured like we might as well, before we actually release it, let's start playing it live, and people could be like, oh, you know, and what's this new song, you know, that kind of thing. And then you know, we released the video, and people were like, oh, sick, you know, I remember hearing this live, and so there was that connection and everything. And then we did Scourge of the Offspring as the second, and that was of course brand new to everyone. So you know, I think we have another one actually coming up. I want to say probably in the next couple of weeks or so, because we just got the a rough draft of the video for that last night to peruse and comment on. So if the timeline goes, it'll probably be about a couple weeks for the next single.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're excited about that. But yeah, there's we wanted to have a new song out there, just even if we just played it live for a month and people can get chatting about that. And a lot of the YouTube videos that people were putting up, you know, which usually are not of the best quality, actually turned out really well. So it was good for us to gauge as well, because I mean, obviously we'd heard the recorded version many times, but to see how it was coming across live, if we were accurately representing it, and if it conveyed itself well, and it did. So, and people were excited about it. So we're like, okay, here's the first single, which we'd already, obviously that's why we were playing it. We planned this out previously. But I think it was a good, you know, successful move. And then, you know, it's kind of, we have 5 singles total for this record, which is more than we've ever done. Usually it's just 2, you know, maybe. So we all strategically time-wise rolling them out. So we'll have, yeah, the one right before the release of the album, one in August, I believe, and then one towards the end of the year, if not beginning of next year, which is weird because the record's out in May. But the thought on that is, you know, I mean, as much as metal people lovingly buy full records and consume them that way, a lot of people don't. It's almost like it's going back to a singles mentality like it was in the 60s, where it's like, well, here's your single and here's maybe your B-side. So it's like you just kind of eke out singles as you go. You know, that doesn't mean we're not going to record full records, but how you present them is going to be a little more old school, but based on new school preferences. You know, so that's kind of how things are going to be rolling out. You know, but they'll have all of the songs that are going to have a video for them, which is something apparently. I'm saying apparently because I'm learning all this too. You know, here's me living under a rock. But you know, people, you know, it's not only you have a video, they really don't want to see concept-driven videos as much, which is really weird for us because we're very heavy on concept. You know, so it's like a lot of performance. And when I say a lot of performance, it's not just like, oh, here's heavy concept and here's us playing. It's like, you know, it's like 3/4 performance, quarter concept if you're going to incorporate something else. So you know, that's another thing to think of, is like all videos with each one of these new songs. So it's, you know, it's that sort of youth glimmer culture. And you get, obviously the whole, you have to grab people in 20 seconds because kids have no attention span these days and all that stuff. But it's the same kind of thing. Like you could not it's not like trying to fool people, but since people aren't buying full records, it's the thought that, oh, it's a new song. They just have a new song out. It's like, well, this is on a record that came out 6 months ago, but okay, you know, it's a new song. So
Mhm.
it's I don't say unfortunately, it's just evolving and changing beast. But I'm used to like, oh, here you do a couple singles, you put out the record, and do your cycle. So this is a new thing for us. But I mean, if it's a way to keep people interested and to, you know, I don't want to say appeal to, but just to kind of like keep a segment of listeners that don't full albums aren't a thing to them, keep them, sort of paying attention, then great.
Okay.
Yeah.
For this record, you worked with the same guys.
Yes.
Wes Vince Porter for the artwork and Dave Otero for the production. A new guys in the collaboration with Tony Parker for the piano and synths. Could you explain to us what is the success of this collaboration with these guys and for this new album?
Yeah. Well, Wes has been. I'll start with him. He's done every cover for us since 2002. Certain Man. We are just. I mean, that's a relationship that we're just thrilled that we're able to continue to maintain. I mean,
Yes,
most
I
of
think
his.
Wes is like a member of the band.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to do this sort of thing like anymore. I mean, he started, doing a lot of obviously band cover his shirts and all that, but he doesn't have to do that anymore. So if he does sort of, I don't want to say pick you or whatever, but just like continue to have interest in working with a band, that's kind of a special thing. And I think of any band, he's done the most work for us. So, or whatever. So we're just glad that he's wanting and isn't as enthusiastic as we are about continuing to work with him, because he really nails everything that we ask. So it's concept wise, him and Travis work, they're just super tightly knit together with their working relationship. So that's we kind of leave that to those two. It's like, don't have a third cook in there to kind of spoil. He kind of goes, here, what do you think of this? And the rest of us comment, have our 2 cents, and he communicates that. But yeah, so we're very happy that Wes is still, as enthusiastic as we are about that relationship. And with Dave Otero, it's kind of the same thing. Like we've been bugged for years prior to going with him in 2012. It's like, oh man, you got to go with this guy Dave Otero. He's just like a whiz kid, at that point. I mean, it's 2012. He was probably, how old am I? He's over 7 years old. Yeah, so he was probably like maybe barely 30 at that point, if that. And so people are like, man, you got to go with this guy. He's just a phenomenal talent and everything. And finally, we not relented, but we were like, oh, well, maybe we should explore this, because his recordings do sound incredibly good. And then from 2012 Monolith and Humanity on, I mean, he's another band member basically when we're in the studio. I mean, he knows all of our styles, he knows our strengths, our weaknesses individually as a band and everything like that. And he really is able to get the best out of us without, in a way that's just so that's really user friendly and not, I mean, it's tense enough in the studio, the pressure you put on yourself and each of us put on each other. The last thing you need is someone who's like going to add an extra level of tension. So he's able to get out of us individually what the recording needs without having that sort of really kind of volatile atmosphere that we're already putting up on ourselves, that without his help. So yeah, I mean, he's invaluable, and his recordings sound great, and we're just happy to keep going to him until he tells us never to call him again. Maybe next record. But yeah, and then with that, what was the other one? Sorry.
Tony Parker?
Yeah, Tony Parker. Yes. Yeah, he was originally
this is
like
your first collaboration with Tony Parker?
Second. He did some work on Death Atlas too.
Okay.
Yeah. He Dave originally, I think it was Dave or Travis, like brought his band Midnight Odyssey, brought that to the attention of the rest of us. They're like, man, have you heard this? And I'm like, oh, at the time I was like, no, I hadn't heard of it. And he just, he put it in on tour and play it and stuff, and we were all really amazed with it. And then when we were in Australia, not this last time, but the time before, maybe the time before, I don't know, a few years ago, he came out to our Brisbane show where he's based out of, and we all just hung out and chatted. And he was super cool, and we all, told him, it was like, man, we love your stuff, and we'd love to work with you and all this. And he was very open and willing to do that. So in both instances, Death Atlas and Terrasite, like we just kind of send, get a point where like, okay, we want him for this sort of part of the song, this particular song or this bumper kind of thing. So we'd send him the material, and he would try different things over it, and we'd get it to where we were super happy with it. And yeah, he's been great. I mean, I like he's really made like parts of Death Atlas, like the latter part of that record, just really, really enhanced it. And then on Just Another Body, on Terrasite, he just like really helped with the moods on that. Just brought it all together. So we're just thrilled. It's one of the best moments on that record is like the last several minutes. So he really killed it on that.
Okay. Last question, Josh. It's about the tour, promotional tour for this new album. Do you schedule a tour in Europe this year or maybe next year in order to we could discover this album on live?
Oh, we're going to try to okay. We had after this, we were over in Europe this past summer, and had the shows were great, the fests were great. Cannot complain about that at all. We had some, like a lot of bands, we were having a lot of logistical issues with travel and everything like that. So initially we were like, well, let's give it a rest for a while, but of course, well, you got a new record coming out. So we were, wrote back in, got a new booking agent in Europe, for multiple territories, mainly Europe. And we're looking to come over early next year. That's as best as I can. Yeah. Okay. But that's the perspective. We're actually going to be talking about.
Yeah, this is too late
for that tomorrow.
Yeah, this is too late for the summer festival in Europe.
Yeah, for the festivals. Yeah. But hopefully for like next
year. You were in Europe last year because
yes.
I saw you at the Brutal Assault.
Yes, yeah. Yes. Brutal Assault. That's one of my favorite fests.
Yes, that was okay.
I love Brutal Assault.
Yes, I love so much, and the live was very, very brutal.
Yeah. So hopefully, what we do is if we come out just on a regular club tour in say late winter, early spring, hopefully that sets us up for. I mean, you have to book that stuff so far in advance, but perfect time to do it for 2024. Maybe fests because we usually do the back end fests, the ones that end, you're there until late August. We haven't done front end fests since 2016, so maybe do like Hellfest, Grass Pop, Roskilde, like the front end stuff. Maybe this time. So who knows? I don't know. That's what we're going to be. We have a conference call tomorrow to talk about a lot of that actually with management. So hopefully we can get some stuff formed out. But yeah, we're going to be, we have, like I said, you mentioned earlier, we have that tour coming up starting May 12th with Dark Funeral, Turn Stab Wounds, and Rock Brave in the US. And then some other international stuff in the late summer, early fall. And then a headlining tour in the US in November, December. And then, like I said, probably beginning of next year or earlier next year in Europe, both UK and mainland.
So I hope you will come in France, and because I want to see you a new time on stage.
Yeah, where are you based out of in France?
Oh, from here I live in the south of France in Toulouse.
Oh, okay, all right,
yeah.
Okay.
But when I saw you at the Hellfest. I saw you at the Brutal Assault. I think only twice, and I think it's not enough.
Okay, I mean, I hope we don't have any really perspective, concrete dates yet, but I mean, it's, I hope that it's comes at least remotely close to you. It's not so we will see. Some big trip, or at the very least, we'll hopefully be doing fests, so it's, give you a little more opportunity, whether it's, a second half of the later Europe Fest or the front half. So either one of those two.
And the last question: what is your playlist at this moment, Josh?
Look,
Yes, what band? Which band do you listen to in this moment?
Geez. I don't, you know, that's one of those things that I wish that um I keep saying is like, man, I wish I had more time to listen to music like I used to, where it's just like, because I used to walk to work every day, so I'd have this, 20 minutes of listen to whatever.
Okay.
But now it's like with the way things are, going, I don't like, this is what I do solely. So um lately, oh my goodness. I mean, there's been so much like there's this label out of Germany. I cannot remember the name of it. My but I like one of those things pops up randomly. I'm like, oh man, check this out. And it's like it's not even it's almost like they just aggregate music from all over the world that's basically like almost like cassette only black metal releases, but they just put it all on their YouTube channel. And so I've just been listening to a ton of that. There's I mean, it's like let me think. Let me think of some of the bands. It's like it's so new to me that I have to like remember the names of the bands. It's not even implanted itself in my there's a band called Dawn's Reflection on there that's really good. I mean, it's okay to go on that. There's a bunch of the label Mystic Chaos. I don't know if you've heard of that. And Serpent Column, and they're on there. Arcton was on Fallen Empire, but it's a label that's based in Portland in the U.S., but it puts out a ton of international bands, mostly black metal bands. But it's like that's the stuff I gravitate towards. If it's metal, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, a lot of us listen. Like this whole resurgence in kind of like 80s dark, like new wave. I mean, I love that shit to death.
Okay.
There's a band called House of Harm from Boston. That's great. Very kind of like a really upbeat Cure or Depeche Mode style band, but a lot more kind of a little more harder dance.
Yeah.
Not quite as this sort of thing. A little more like, I don't want to say aggro, but just a little more higher energy. I saw the other night here in Berlin, I went and saw David Eugene Edwards from Woven Hand and 16 Horsepower. He's doing a solo tour over there. Great as always. I mean, I've seen him with full band and just solo several times. He's one of my favorite, if not my favorite artists out there right now. So I was happy with that. Carpenter Brute. It's like sounds like
it's good.
Miami Vice drug lord music.
Okay.
And I don't know. I just really, it's like I said, I wish I had more time to listen to music, but it's pretty much like black metal that sounds like a tornado of glass, dark wave, and the stuff I grew up with, which was like 80s radio music.
It's
So I mean, yeah, it's
okay.
like that's kind of what I listen to for the most part, or whatever music my girlfriend's listening to.
Okay.
filtered through the wall, while she's working on the computer.
So, thank you very much, Josh, for this intro and more explanation for this new album. So, this new album called Terrasite will be out in May the 12th by Metal Blade Records. This is a very, very excellent album. I listened to it yesterday. I have a big success with this album. I think you could be proud with this album because it succeeded very much good after this at last. So, good job.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis. See you.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Ha ha ha!